Okay guys, today we're with Mike with Direct Pit Parts. We're going to show you how to install a new tire on a rim, guys. These are tubeless tires, but we're installing them with a tube. Mike's going to take you through the process of installing one. Here we go, Mike.
Anytime you're going to put a tire on with a tube, cleanliness is next to godliness. So you always make sure you clean it out if there's any gravel, pebbles, anything like that, thorns if you're out in the bushes, whatever. But you got to look inside your tire because they're going to do some sort of badging inside. And they're going to have a little plastic laminate covering anything. So Travis is going to show you this here, and I got to pick it off. So if you look down in here, you'll see this plastic. That's going to cause a hole in a tube over time. So you got to get rid of that stuff. All it takes is a little bit of friction to poke a hole in that tube. So just like that. Okay. Next, we're going to lube our bead. Never use too much. Make sure you got your stem hole up. Put your back bead on. Put your bead on, make sure you put pressure over here so it hooks.
Mike, tell us about the bars you like to use.
Flat bar is my preference. Coming off, I like to use one curved bar and a flat bar. But going on, I prefer a flat bar. Well, if you're a bigger guy than me, you can get away with that.
Show us your bar here, Mike. Let's take a look at that.
It's just a flat bar.
Show it to me from the side. Turn it. Right there. See guys, no curve in that bar at all.
Okay, we're going to put our tube in. I like to put the stem hole on top. Rotate it around. So, also use talc powder. Helps with the friction between your tube and your tire. This one we're going to use an 11-238 tube. If you are using a radial tire, you do need a radial tube. This is not. So we can use a bias or a radial tube in it. But if it's radial tire, it must be a radial tube. I like to start my stem first, just like that. Got a little nut here. Put it on. Okay. Now you gotta make sure you don't twist your tube.
What happens if you twist your tube, Mike?
It's gonna have a crease in it, and it's gonna be a weak point. And it's gonna let go. Not right away, but after you thought the job was done, you walked out of your hot cornfield, it's gonna start leaking. Okay, we got our tube in. You're not going to hurt anything by setting it down. You're going to drop that tube further in. Okay, what I like to do is put a little bit of air in the tube so you can't pinch it. It makes it harder to pinch, I should say.
Is there a certain PSI or do you gauge it in a certain way?
No PSI because you're not going to have your top bead on until it's filled up. Firm enough to where it'll push away instead of pinch when you stick your tire iron in it. You can lube your bead while you're doing that. take a little bit. Start to see this bead rise up like the tube's got enough air in it. It's pushing your bead up. That's what we're looking for.
And if we're doing these in the field, guys, make sure we get all the mud, the stalks, the grass out of that tire, because that can rub on our tube over time. Mike, when it comes to dishing, which way do you prefer to mount them? Because I'm sure there are sometimes tires have different valve cores on different sides, but tell us about the bead.
It's going to come down to the drop. You're going to have a shallow drop and a deep drop if there's a difference. This is your drop. So if you have a deep drop, it's going to be further in. That's the side you don't want to take off first. You always want the shallowest side. So that's what we're chasing when we're taking off, is the shallowest side of these two, which this rim matches, so it's not a big deal. But on your recaps especially, you're going to see it. Get into more of your tractor rims, you're really going to start to see it, especially one side might even have a triple drop where it goes all the way down. It makes it a lot easier. Those tires will practically fall off. Looks like we're there. So I got the pressure I want, tube's plenty inflated. I don't have to worry about it getting wrinkles in it or anything like that when I go together. I'm going to let the air out. The tube is taking the shape that it's going to be in for the rest of the duration. So you've got everything expanded out. A lot of guys will say put it together, air it up, let the air out, put it back in. But when we do this, we don't have to. So we're always going to start with the stem last. So we'll start over here. You can start over here depending on what way you like to work. But keep pressure there so you're holding that bead down. Just work your way. Smaller bites are usually better. But you got to watch how far you're sticking this in so you can catch that tube.
Any tips you got for us, Mike, on not pinching a tube?
Don't ever go all the way. Just go in a little bit. You come up to here. You don't want to push it all the way out, and then I just roll it through.
So that rolling motion helps with that process.
Push this bead down so you got room to pull. If you just start pulling and that bead's not down, you're going to rip a bead. Can't get in, take your other bar, make sure you're clean, with the pry up, push in, just like that. Now I can get in. Do me again. This is where you really got to watch out. There we go. You see how that's set up like that? If it pulls down all the way down, it can come in and jam and pinch your tube right at the stem. You want that up, and that's why we inflate that tube. It holds it up.
That's the most common mistake I see, guys, when we have guys mounting tires and with tubes in them. So just be leery of that, everybody.
So we'll lube that little O-ring up a little bit. Your extra lube. Taking your core housing,
What PSI do you fill it up to, Mike?
11.238 biases, I'll go to 25 pounds. If the guy prefers more or less, he can do what he wants after that, but 25 is a comfortable number.
And sometimes do you have to overfill them a little bit to seat the bead, then deflate them?
You do sometimes, yes. Another thing to watch for is how this bead is pulled down. If we hadn't inflated that tube, we could have the tube in between the bead and the rim. Where we inflated it, it's going to push it down and away. So I'm not too worried about that, but this is going to be the last part that pops hard. So if there was a tube in there, it's going to roll it and rip it open.
Well, boys, that's pretty much it. You fill it up 25 PSI or until the bead seats, and you let air out until you're at 25 PSI. But check it out, directpivparts.com. We got tubes, tires, rims, everything in stock you need. Check us out.